Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello there, and welcome back to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, and here we are at episode number 45 already. And if you'd believe it, we're going to have another Hall of Famer on the program. We've already had on Ken Holland, we've already had on Jerome McGinley, and now we're going to follow it up with Willie O'Ree, Hall of Famer, inducted in 2018 in the Builder category. And if you don't recognize the name Willie O'Ree, kind of shame on you a little bit, but don't feel too bad, because I think that's actually really special, because you're going to hear from a man who changed our game. Because Willie was the first ever black player to play in the NHL. He broke the NHL color barrier, and some have referred to him as the Jackie Robinson of hockey. And he accomplished this feat on January 18th, 1958, where he put on the sweater of the Boston Bruins. Willie went on to play another 44 games with them in different seasons and played 21 years of professional hockey. But it's just really, really interesting, his story. To be the first at anything is amazing. And to do what he did at the time when he did it was a true pioneer and trailblazer in the sport. And it took a really unique personality to be able to accomplish that, because there was so many things that Willie had to overcome on his journey to the NHL, for sure, but also just to play pro hockey. Right now it's criticized as being not diverse enough, and rightfully so. It is a white man's sport when you look at the television, but you do see some ethnicities out there. You do see some minority representation. But we have to remember, in 1958, that was just not the case at all. So every single place that Willie went, he was instantly recognized as being different. He was instantly recognized as being, a foreigner, a stranger, a minority, and he was reminded of every day. He'll tell some of those stories that this is, his passion to be a hockey player was so bright. It burnt so bright that he would overlook and look through and overcome all these things that he faced. And like I said, the NHL recognized him back in 1998 and was given the role of NHL's diversity ambassador. This is when he was 73 years old. Willie is still in great shape, now 85. And he was traveling around, increasing the game, the diversity in the game. He was speaking to young athletes all over the place, trying to introduce them to hockey and exposing them to our great sport, and trying to get more kids involved in the game. He's been a true ambassador of the sport. He is a class act. The NHL, I said acknowledged, well, not the NHL, the Hall of Fame acknowledged him in 2018, and the NHL acknowledged him in the same year by introducing an annual award in his name, named the Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award, which is given to somebody who exemplifies great service and contribution in the community in the name of hockey. We were lucky enough to have on Dampy Brar, who won that award this year, and who actually got me on to Willie O'Ree's story and had me digging in, which had me reach out to the NHL, have a conversation with the NHL. They have kind of, you'd call handlers, I guess, of Willie and who he speaks to and what he does, and they put me in touch with Willie, and Willie was super gracious in speaking with me. And now you have the benefit of listening to Willie. So here is a Hall of Famer. Here is a man who changed the game forever in the best way possible. He has an amazing story about playing all those games and all those years with one eye, which he kept secret, by the way. Nobody knew except for his sister, not even his parents. We get into all these crazy stories, the past that he had to move, right? There was no path where he was. He had to make his own path, and he made the path for others, and the game's a better spot for it. So without further ado, I bring you 2018 Hall of Famer and one of the best class acts hockey has to offer in today's game, Mr. Willie O'Ree. I just want to add before we actually get right into the interview that for this interview, Willie and I weren't able to get face to face. Like I said, Willie had just experienced his 85th birthday. Just a mountain of a man when it comes to his memory, with his comes to articulation and everything else. But I know many of us are technologically challenged in this day and age, and it was difficult to be able to set Willie up with a Zoom call. So we had to do an old three-way phone conversation, which was facilitated by the NHL, which obviously I'm super grateful for. But there was a little bit of a delay, there was a little bit of a lag, and it was hard to see, when Willie was going to speak or if he was going to speak. So for me, there was a bit of challenges trying to administer the interview. I still am super proud of the interview. I thought Willie and I overcame the technical challenges that were there. But just while you're listening, if it sounds like, maybe we're speaking over each other a couple times, or if there is a little bit of delay, or if Willie's a little bit hard to hear, please bear with it. Have patience. It was the best that we could do, and Willie is definitely worth your time and your respect to hear his story, and you can carry his story to wherever you travel in the hockey world. And I know it's going to make you a better person when you travel there. So just wanted to give you that heads up, and enjoy the rest of the interview. Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, I'll just, maybe if you have a second, I'll just explain kind of the genesis of how I ended up reaching out. I'm an ex-NHL'er myself too. You ended up playing 4 more games than I did. I played 41, and
oh gosh.
and it was a second round draft pick, and kind of, things didn't work out as far as from the NHL how I wanted them to. But I ended up playing 10 years professional, and now
Good.
I've come back to the game now as a coach and kind of as a mentor. And like I said, my 3 boys are young, 11, 10, and 8. And
Oh my.
yeah, so it's a really fun age. I mean, it's really, I'm sure you remember what it was like at that age, where, the NHL and the players in it, everything is just sort of larger than life, and they're really loving hockey and their participation in it. And
Oh yeah. Well, it's a great sport.
Yeah, no, amazing. And part of what I'm doing now is I got this podcast, and the podcast has been quite successful. I was traded a lot, Willie, when I was playing, so I ended up having a lot of teammates and a lot of coaches, so my network was pretty big. So I got a lot of really great names on, and this past year, with, as everything going on around the NHL and just, society in general, with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything else, the conversation and the topic led to diversity and race in hockey and what we can do. I spoke with Kevin Weeks, Jerome McGinley's been on the show, Peter Worrell, many players that I used to play with, and then I came across Dampy Brar. I'm sure you remember Dampy. Do you remember that name?
Oh, Dampy Brar, yeah. He won the community, the Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award a couple years ago.
I know, what an amazing honor that was for him. So I interviewed him, and
that was just last year.
Yeah, it was this year.
Yeah, just last year.
Yeah, 2020. So he had some amazing things to say about you, and so like my head has been going around like, well, how can I help? Someone like, a white guy with white kids in kind of a white town in Canada. How do I help?
Color has nothing to do with it, Jason.
Right.
Really. Yeah, it's just want to try and get more kids into hockey, and teaching them the right fundamentals of the sport.
Is that what you feel like? Is that your greatest mission or goal at this stage? Is it just getting more kids involved?
Getting more kids involved, yeah, and then letting them know that there is another sport that they can play. A lot of these kids live in communities where they're not handy to a rink, and they would like to play hockey, but they just don't have the transportation. But once we get these kids on the ice, the one thing about the program is the volunteers. If it wasn't for the volunteers, the program they wouldn't exist, because these volunteers, they go and pick these boys and girls up from the home and bring them to the rink to practice it, play, and then make sure that they get back to their home safely. And that's the big thing today. And then the cost. Hockey it's a very expensive sport.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's a big barrier for a lot of families. And we definitely want more people playing. And I guess,
Oh,
I
but
mean,
yes,
it must be twofold, right? Because, we hear the stories of, your own personal stories growing up and playing, and the stories of the athletes now,
hmm
like Jerome McGinley. And I feel that there is a place, I mean, one, it needs to be a safe place too. We need to get people in the rinks, but it also needs to be a safe place once they get there. And
oh, that's true. So
yeah,
very true.
and I think that the coaches and the athletes involved and the parents involved, I mean, I think that maybe there is a place, where we need to recognize, I guess, that difference. And that's one of the conversations that I've had with my sons after speaking with people like Kevin Weeks and Nathan Lafayette and these people. Because when I was playing hockey, Willie, with these guys, they were just teammates. They were my teammates, right? They were hockey players on my team,
Exactly.
and it didn't even cross my mind, to be honest, that their experience might somehow be different than mine. I just thought that we were both trying to get to the same place, and we're both doing the same things. And then having those conversations was eye-opening to me, because everything that they did, being the only black person in a white locker room, was different for them.
hmm
And I felt poorly about myself afterwards, like not recognizing that in the moment. And I think these conversations, and the ones I'm having with my sons and outside of that on this platform, do matter, because recognizing that, I think us, like the human nature of ourselves, being better people, can now make that experience more equitable or more
Yeah.
fair or more inclusive, like in the locker room or when people show up at the rink. Do you agree that we do have a place in
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I do. Do you think they have problems, mental problems playing?
I'm sorry.
Do your sons have problems, facial problems playing when they're playing?
No,
Do they have
we
any?
they haven't experienced that at all, but mind you, like I said, we are in an area where we are in a white demographic. Like, there isn't too many minorities, especially
Right,
we do have Asian Canadians and Indian Canadians and those,
right.
and so there's minorities. There's a girl on Hudson's team, with a minority, but it's not many black people in our community, and definitely not many black people that are playing hockey. So like that doesn't come up.
Right.
Um, so, but I think one of the interesting parts of the conversation is that a minority is a minority, and recognizing that from a place of the majority is beneficial. I know Hudson, like I said, my oldest at 11. Uh, we've had conversations about the girl on his hockey team. She's an amazing hockey player. She's a great piece in that locker room, and she's a massive benefit to these boys in the locker room. But even talking about to him about, hey, that this girl is the only girl. How do you think she feels in that locker room? Right? Like, what do you think
Yeah.
she's going through? So I love the conversations that your story has inspired, around my house, and I know in other houses. And I thought that being able to chat with you today, on your thoughts on your journey, what you think the barriers are now, would be really helpful to people.
Well, I think it's it's a lot different back then. 60 years ago. 65 years ago when I broke in. I'm just like that broke into the NHL. Um, I was the only black player there, but there were only 6 teams. Because the original 6. There were 2 from Canada and 4 from the United States. And I ran into a lot of racial problems when I played in the states, especially 3 or 4 of the cities there. But I took it upon myself, and I have to thank my older brother, who was not only my brother and my friend, but he was my mentor, and he taught me a lot of things that I would need to know if I was going to choose hockey as a career. And the first thing he says, well, he says, you're going to be um, subject to name calling, because people have never seen a black hockey player on the ice before. And he says, what you have to do is you just have to take it upon yourself. If these people can't accept you for the individual that you are, because at the time I had the skills and ability to play in the league, and after I left the league, You know, when I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror, I don't see a brown man or a black man, just a man. And I think that's the way a lot of people have to look upon these hockey players. These players of color and the black players that are they're in the league, and the ones that have retired, the ones that you mentioned, they were there because they had the skill and the ability to be there. And they worked hard and they proved that they could play in the National Hockey League. And now these kids that are coming up, they look at a lot of these players as role models, you know, and they look upon them and say, "Gosh, I could be a Jerome again, or I could be a Kevin Weeks or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And I just think a lot of people have to be re-educated. They really do. These people that go to the games and make racial slurs and racial remarks towards these players, you know, they're racist people. You won't change them. That's just the way they are. And I'm so glad now that they put in some things in the league that, you know, a lot of these fans that make racial remarks and racial slurs towards players, they're ejected from the ring, and they should be. They should be. If they can't go there and watch a game and look upon just each player is just a hockey player, just another hockey player, and look beyond the color of their skin. You know, the one thing I learned from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you know, he said, "Don't judge a person by the color of their skin, but the content of their character." And there's a lot of truth to that when you think about it, you know. And that's
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Growing up, you know, I racial slurs and racial remarks directed towards me, and I haven't played in the league since 1960.
Mm-hmm. I was actually going to ask you that question about the Martin Luther King quote there, and I think it's a beautiful quote, and I've heard you reference that in the past. The last part, I do speak quite a bit about character on this podcast. When you read that quote or you hear that quote, the content of his character, what does character mean to you in that sentence?
I
or
think
to you
character
personally?
means how a person presents himself. You know, when I was brought up, my parents were very strict on being polite and you know, thanking people when they give you something, or, you know, if you're walking in front of a person, you know, excuse yourself and things like that. Just basic common sense things that a lot of these kids and a lot of these people, they don't know. I mean, it's amazing. You know, it's going into the 21st century, and some of these people, you know, it's just like taking one step forward and two back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the zero tolerance policy with the league and the fans, and I couldn't agree more with that. And I think that has to start in the youth rinks as well.
Exactly.
Again, I've never come across it personally as a coach yet, and hopefully I never do. But that is something where I think the collective has to speak. You know, for the minority there, and stand it as a safe place. I know when I was speaking with Jerome on a recent episode, he said that was one of the most impactful moments he had in his career as a young athlete, was when somebody used a racial slur, and it wasn't his mom or dad that got up and defended him, but it was somebody else on that team, you know, another father that went over and you know, said that wasn't right. And he said that meant a lot, to know that he was protected and to know that people cared. And I just really hope that, like, the conversations that are happening now is making people recognize that, you know, we can't be quiet, I guess,
we can't.
Yeah.
We can't. I mean, you know, I'll have coffee with some friends, you know, we social distance, and I wear a mask and everything, you know. It's at a Starbucks, you know, you have there's an outside, and have umbrellas for everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of, you know, people come into the Starbucks to buy coffee and stuff, you know, and I sit there, and I'm the only black person in this group, and it's not because of who I am. It's just because of, you know, I'm just a black man, and I've had incidents where, you know, a black person comes in and and there's been a racial slur and a racial remark directed, towards him. And I just stood up and I just put it right in. And I says, well, why don't you put, walk in his shoes for a day and see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times and times again, you just have to stand up and let them know who you are, and you just can't stand for that type of language.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it shouldn't just be your voice in there either, right? It should be the collective. I couldn't agree more. Uh, in researching you, I watched your movie, the documentary, very very well done.
Documentary.
Yeah, it was awesome. Really
We had
really
a lot
well
of fun
done.
doing it.
Yeah, good for you. And found out you were the youngest of 13. I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting part of your story just in of itself, because I see with my three boys, my youngest just turned 8 yesterday, actually, Willie. So he has these two older brothers that he's running around trying to catch and chase and, getting beat
Right.
up by and everything else. So I see the dynamic in that. I couldn't imagine being the youngest of 13. Do you think that made you a little tougher growing up?
I believe so. And when I go up, most of my brothers and sisters have moved away, moved away, and there's just a younger sister, Betty, who was 2 years older than me, living at home. And but as I mentioned, my older brother Richard, who played hockey, so he also was a boxer, but. He taught me a lot, and I had the pleasure of playing with him on a few. He was 14 years older than 16 years older than me. But he knew the type of individual that I was, because growing up and playing sport, he knew what I could take and what when things bothered me, and he was always there to to help me out. And, I credit my brother for the total years that I was able to play, not only in the National League, but the 21 years I played pro. And he's passed on, but every day I always think about the times that he had taken to work with me, and because he knew what I wanted to do, and he knew the burning fire within me, and he just said, work hard. There's no substitute for hard work. He says you only get out of thing once you get into it, and he says if you go out and work 40%, don't expect 60 or 70%. Only expect the 40%, and so. And then again, going to training camps, my first junior training camp, I was the only the black kid there. I took it upon myself to say, when I go to camp, if they're going to choose 20 or 22 players on the roster, I'm going to be one of the 22, regardless of what I have to do, save harder or score more goals or check harder or something. And that instilled me. And every time I went to training camp, I made the team, and I was traded later on, but I made the initial team. And those are the things I still work with today. I still set goals for myself and work towards my goals, and just believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself and like yourself. And if you like yourself, other people are going to like you. But if you go around with an attitude, I don't expect many people would like to, be in your company or, be friends with you.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things there. Well, first about your brother, and I know you've mentioned him lots, and being a mentor. And as you are a mentor for tons of people now, and with your story, and what an impact a mentor can have on a career, on a person, on an individual. Is that something that you take pride in your work now as being a mentor for others?
I do. Yeah, every day I do. I haven't traveled since the first week of March due to this, coronavirus thing. But I was traveling around and speaking at numerous schools, elementary, middle schools, junior high, high school. Yeah. Boys and Girls Clubs, YMYWCA, juvenile detention facilities, and just trying to encourage more boys and girls to maybe to get into playing hockey. And the nice thing about it is just being honest with these kids, and let them know that if you're not having fun, why play a sport? Just to play it, play another sport. And a lot of these kids that are playing, they're not going to make it to the NHL, although a lot of them think they are. But that's the thing. Just set goals for yourselves and work towards your goals. And don't let anybody tell you can't attain your goal. And if you feel strongly within your heart, within your mind, that's all it takes. And
yeah, I've heard you use that line before. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. And I think that's such a powerful statement. And I think that's seems to me like that's a piece of you that goes back, even reading about your story there in Fredericton, you being the first one to enter that barbershop to get a haircut.
Well, the barbershop, with Joe McQuaid.
Yeah. Like,
well, we had talked about it, there wasn't, there wasn't any barbershop in Fredericton.
Mm-hmm.
And the O'Ree name is a very prominent name in Fredericton. My brother was a boxer. I had one brother that played football. My sisters were basketball, and I played hockey. So when I was growing up, Mr. McQuaid lived 5 houses from where I live, and we just got on the conversation, and he said, "Well, yeah, but he says, what it's coming?" He says, "I'll cut your hair. It's nice coach, and in the back." And I used to go there and get my hair cut, and then I think it was 17. This is before I left to go to play junior. We were just, he was cutting my hair, and I just said, "Mr. McQuaid," I said, what would you think if I come into your barbershop and have you, cut my hair?" And there was a pause, and he says, "Well, I don't know." He said, "But we've never had any, black people come into our shop. I don't know what to tell you." I said, "Well, I says, would you cut my hair if I come into your shop?" Because there wasn't any signs saying, and then signs saying about cutting the hair. So just one day I walked in, and there were 4 barber chairs, and they were all busy, and there were 2 other people waiting, and there was a couple of empty chairs. So I sat down in one of the empty chairs, and one of the barbers had just finished, and he looked in my direction, and I said, I'm waiting for Mr. McQuaid." So I sat there another 20 minutes, and then I got into the chair. As soon as I sat in the chair, I started a conversation right up immediately. I said, "Hi, Mr. McQuaid, how's your day going?" and so on, because I knew from the people that were in the shop and the eye contact that I made that they were like, "Oh my God, what is this?" So I just kept talking, and I just rambled on, and he cut my hair, and there wasn't anything said. And I walked out after, and I paid him, and I thanked him, and I walked out, and then I went to his home a couple of days later, and talked with him, and he said that the barbers were astonished that I come into the shop. And I said, "Well, what was there feedback, or did they make any comments on it?" He said, "No, not really, but they just didn't have that feeling that a black person actually come into a shop and got their hair cut."
Right, you shocked them. I love it.
Well, but
Yeah.
I knew. I knew from the expressions on their faces. I mean, they knew me because I was playing baseball, and I in Fredericton and playing some other sports. They knew who I was. They just when they saw me, it wasn't who I was. It was what I was.
Right. Yeah. I think it takes a special person. I mean, you said you're the youngest of 13, one of two black families that live in Fredericton, and you were the first one that made that move to want to go get your hair cut in the barber shop. And I think that says something about
Yeah,
you. And obviously, I mean, it goes forward to some of the other things that have happened. And so it takes an individual with a personality like yours that you said you had
right.
to believe in your heart and your mind. You don't want to let anyone tell you what you can't do. Like all these things have to be a real
That's true.
solid part of you, right?
Yeah,
For you to be able to do what you were
yeah.
doing there. But there was one name that came up when I was looking into, you mentioned your brother, and then there's also a coach by the name of Phil Watson. And I believe that he told
Phil
you,
Watson,
um,
my first junior coach.
and he said that you had what it takes, didn't he?
Yeah, he told me, he said there hasn't been a black player in the NHL, and he says you could be the first. Well, it kind of went in one ear and out the other, because all I was interested in was making the team and trying to represent the hockey club to the best of my ability, because I was the only black player on the team. And after Phil, in my second year, I was playing in Kitchener with the Kitchener-Waterloo Junior Canucks, and Jack Stewart was the coach. Black Jack Stewart was the coach, and he told me the same thing when I was playing there. And it really didn't register with me. I think so after the season, because I had played my last year junior, and Ponchemlak was the coach and general manager of the Quebec Aces, the professional team up in Quebec. And he called me and said, Willie, this was after my eye injury. I came back, and he says, I watched you play the last couple of years, and he says, I'd like to invite you to the Quebec Aces training camp up in Quebec, pro team. That's when it kind of sunk in with me. I said, maybe I could be. And went to the training camp. Again, I was fearful of failing. I said, if I didn't make the team, how could I come back to my hometown and not only tell my parents, but tell some of my close friends that I wasn't good enough. I couldn't make the team. And so when I went up and I worked hard and made the team, and we won the league that year. We won. It was like winning the Stanley Cup in the National Hockey League. It was the highest award in that league. Then that gave me the extra confidence that I needed. I just told myself, I said, Willie, we can do anything you set your mind to do if you feel strongly within your heart and within your mind. And I forgot about being blind in my right eye. I just went out and played. And then I switched over to right wing in '65, and that made a big difference.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, the belief, right? You talk about you yourself believing, and the fact that these coaches believed in you and your brother believed in you. I do.
Yeah.
As much of a pioneer as you were and a maverick in your own way. I mean, there's other people that need to be involved in the journey, that support you and that help
God,
you
there was thousands,
get you there,
really.
right?
I couldn't name them all.
Yeah.
I
And
couldn't name all the people that helped me along the way. When I first started, I named some of them in my speech, in my Hall of Fame speech. But there was hundreds of other people that really helped me, and thought and knew that I just had something special, and he was going to he was just going to work hard and attain his goal.
yeah. The You mentioned your eye, and I wanted to talk with you about that because most of the things I've seen talked, I mean, written about you with the eye. I mean, it's obviously a ridiculous accomplishment to do what you did with one eye, but like no one's actually talked to you, or at least I haven't seen about like what it was like playing. I was having a conversation with my sons about it, and we were both, to play hockey, as my son said in that video that we sent you, is hard enough with two eyes. Uh,
I know,
how
yeah.
how was that as a hockey player, just talking hockey talk now, like to be able to do that with 50% of your vision being taken away?
Well, It was just a hockey injury, and I remember I was playing for Kitchener, and we were playing in golf, and there was a slap shot. Ken Douglas, one of them, my defenseman, was on the point, and I just crossed and made a shot and went towards the net, and the goalie come out, and I went to get a deflection, and Ken had a terrific slap shot. He could really fire the puck. He shot and it ricocheted off a stick, and I'm in front of the net, and I'm looking, for the puck, and all of a sudden it comes up, hits me flat, breaks the nose, broke my cheek, and I remember dropping down to the ice, and the next thing I knew, I was placed in an ambulance and taken to the hospital. Dr. Henderson was the surgeon, and I come out of surgery, and I'm laying in my hospital bed in my recovery room, and Dr. Henderson come in, and he said, "Mr. O'Ree," he says, I'm sorry to inform you, he says, the impact of the puck completely shattered the retina in your right eye. He says, "You're going to be blind and you'll never play hockey again." Well, I was just going on 18, and it was like somebody hit me over the head with a sledgehammer. I slumped back in my bed, and the goals and dreams I had about playing pro hockey seemingly were gone. I remained in the hospital a couple of days. Then I got out, and I had a patch over my eye, and I was just saying I was going to go back to my hometown, and then I said, well, I'm just going to stick it out, and within 5 weeks I'm back on the ice. Now I'm a left-hand shot and playing left wing to compensate. I had to turn my head all the way around to the right to look over my right shoulder to pick the puck up and pick the play up, and I was overskating the puck and missing the net. And so I just said, "Willie, what's wrong?" And he said, "Well, forget about what you can't see and just concentrate on what you can see." And the season ends, and I come back to my hometown, and then that's when Punch contacted me. But the thing was, I never took one eye exam. The 21 years I played pro, not even when I went to the Bruins. They didn't have eye machines back then. The only eye machine I took was when I went to get my driver's license. You had to read the letters, and the small and the big. But all the years I played, I never sat in front of an eye machine, because if I had, I would have never played pro hockey, and definitely I would have never played in the NHL.
That's crazy. So you mentioned, because it was your right eye, so you mentioned being on the left wing and having to turn all the way around. So then you went to the offside, because at least like the majority of the ice was open to you.
Right. In 1965, I went to training camp in Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Blaze, and Alfie Pike was the coach, and he had about 6 left wingers at camp, and he only had 1 right winger. And he said, "Willie, have you ever played right wing?" And he says, "I could use your speed on the right side." I said, "No, Alfie, I played left wing all my career." He says, "Why don't you give it a try?" So I switched over to the right side, and now the boards are to my right, and I can be going down the ice. I don't have to be turning my head, looking the puck, things like that. But then 10 or 12 games, I fit right in, and then I won the goal scoring that year in '65, and I won it again in '69, only due to the fact that I switched over to the right side.
Oh, that's such a cool story. And you seem to be very adamant and knew at a very young age that no one could know about this. And it sounded like, really no one knew about it. Your sister was the only person that you told, and
I told my sister.
Yeah, and that was the only person. So you kept that
I swore her to secrecy. I said, "Sis, please don't say anything, because if they find out that I'm blind, I won't be able to play pro hockey. I definitely won't be able to get into the NHL." See, when I had my injury, and then I got out of the hospital and I started back playing again, see, everybody thought that I'd recovered from. They thought, "Oh God, he's back. His eye's okay." But I was blind. I never told my parents, because when I came back to play, they thought that I was okay. Because if I had told them, they would have tried to convince me to quit playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I can still see out of my other eye. And they went to their grave knowing that, that I was okay. And then even a lot of people today don't realize that, the 21 years I played with one eye.
Was that, I really love that line that you said already, Willie, where you said when you had that conversation with yourself and you said, forget about what you can't see, focus on what you can see. Do you think
Yeah,
that's
just focus.
a metaphor
Exactly.
for kind of how you saw your life just in general? Did you focus on what you could do and not what you couldn't do, or what people were telling you
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing? Yeah.
I've been a positive person all my life. I always think positive. Within everybody. I think we are two individuals within ourselves. We're a person who we think we are. We're a person who other people think we are, and we're a person who we really are. And I think that I'm that person that you really are when you go through everything, and things that I've done, and that's the way I live.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of us spend a lot of time focusing on what isn't right or what we can't do or what people are telling us we can't do. But when we start focusing our attention on what we can do and what we're able to overcome or solutions, I
Right.
believe, it really moves us forward. And you're obviously an example of moving forward and continuing on. And I just like that because it comes up in things you say, I think, without you even recognizing that you're saying them. That's just so inbred in you as being a part of you. That
Yeah.
you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now, and you wouldn't have accomplished what you did accomplish previously if that wasn't a piece of your makeup.
Anything I do, any games I play to win. And a lot of people say, "Yeah, there's a win and a loser." I said, I understand that, but when I play something, I want to play to the best of my ability and work as hard as I can.
Can we talk a little bit about your time as I've read you said pretty much every game that there was some type of a racial slur said towards you, or you had to deal with something in the pro ranks. How was the experience for you on the team that you were on? Were your teammates generally were they good to you? Were like, how was that experience for you?
They were very supportive. They really was. I can honestly say that all the teams I played for, all the players were very supportive. Well, they knew the type of hockey player I could say. I could score goals and win a hockey game. And they forgot about the color of my skin, and they looked upon me as just another player that they were playing with.
Did you have any experiences? Like I read that you also said that there's no way you could retaliate or fight every time that you heard a racial slur because you'd be in the penalty box all the time, right?
Yeah. Back then we didn't wear any helmets, no cages, no face shields or anything. And a lot of guys would take shots at my head. And I always protected myself, and I fought a lot when the first time. I thought because I had to, not because I wanted to, but guys wanted to drop their gloves, and I dropped my gloves. I wanted to fight, fight. Some guys wouldn't drop their sticks, and they were, I had a couple of stick fights, but I never fought one time because of racial remarks or racial slurs. I knew that I'd be in the penalty box all the time, but I always tried to protect myself, and it took a long time for me to gain the respect of not only the fans in the stands, but players on the opposition. Mm-hmm. And but in the 21 years I played, I finally gained the respect of a lot of players and a lot of fans.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
I went up in the stands.
Do you remember any teammates going like to having your back there or stepping in some of those scenarios where you weren't?
Oh
yeah.
Well, with the Bruins, the whole club was very supportive. Johnny Glusick and Don. I played with the Charlie Bruins and Tom McArthur, and they always watched my back when I was on the ice. And the whole team was. I went to the James training camp on 2 occasions. They knew the type of player I was, and then playing in in the Western Hockey League for 14 years. There were guys there that was always there watching my back.
How much of that? What did that mean to you?
Oh gosh, a lot, really. They were always there. You know, you thank them, and they felt good about it. They felt good that they were there, and being another player that I had the pleasure of playing with.
That's amazing.
There was, as I said, I fought a lot, but you know, as I mentioned, I never fought because of racial remark.
Right. I read that Jackie Robinson was had a big influence on you as well, and you had the opportunity to meet him twice, and what an impression that made on you. One, because you were meeting Jackie Robinson, of course, but two, just because of the type of human that he was and the fact that he remembered you the second time, so long after the fact.
Second time in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
In 1949 when I first met him, and I went down to the dugout after the game, shook hands with him, and told Mr. Robinson that I not only played baseball, but I played hockey. He didn't realize that there were any guys that played at that time. And I said, yeah, Mr. Robinson, there's a few. And he says, this is what I remembered about him. He says, you know what, whatever sport you choose, he says, work as hard as you can and be the best player you could be. And that always stuck in my mind. And that was 49. In 1961, I was picked for the Los Angeles Blades in the Western Hockey League. And in 1962, the NAACP had a luncheon in Mr. Robinson's honor at one of the local hotels in North Hollywood. I received an invitation through the hockey club, and I went with the coach and two other players besides myself. And when we arrived there, Mr. Robinson was standing talking to some media people, so we just stood offside waiting for him to finish. And when he finished, the coach came over and said, Mr. Robinson, I'd like to introduce you to two of our local players here, especially Willie O'Ree, newly acquired from the Montreal Canadians. And Mr. Robinson turned and looked at me and said, Willie O'Ree, he says, aren't you the young fellow I met in Brooklyn? So he remembered me, all those years, and
right.
the millions of people that he had met during those years. But he made a big impression. He made just a big impression on me, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, and you should. And what a classy individual. I mean, I have a. I mean, it's not a similar story, but I had a story where I got to meet Wayne Gretzky in an unbelievable scenario underneath the rink after a playoff game, and he spent time with me. He gave me this stick, and I was a 17-year-old kid who was hoping to get drafted that season, and just my interaction with Wayne Gretzky, like how the impact he made on me, because he gave me my moment, I guess is the way I could put it. Like he made me feel special. He made me feel like I was a big deal to him, and I mean that stuck with me all these years. 30 years later, and the contact you had with Jackie stuck with you. Now you're in a position where you're making impacts on others. Do you reflect on that impact that Jackie made with you and realize that there's people that you can affect like that as well?
I know. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people that they told me that I've made an impact on their son or daughter playing, and even on themselves. And it's a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling to that you've made somebody feel good. It doesn't take much to put a smile on a person's face. Especially today's age.
Isn't that the truth? And it's amazing that we can't, as a group, as a collective, just do that more. Have an intention of making people feel good. It like I said, sadly, it doesn't take much. So I mean, why don't we do it? I think that you're a great representation of that. I want to ask, just before we close, just about your.
Yeah, I've got another. I've got another appointment in about 20 minutes. Do you want to talk some more tomorrow? Are you available tomorrow?
Okay. So there was part one, day one of the interview. We started a little bit late for part one. Willie had some challenges getting on, and then we didn't necessarily have a hard stop time scheduled at the start. So I wasn't really sure when we were supposed to end, but Willie was definitely gracious enough to come back the next day, and we concluded here with the last 10 minutes or so of the interview. I got to ask my last couple of questions and wrap things up, and so I'm glad you stuck around to listen to Willie. And again, for all of those of you who have helped this podcast grow, continue to subscribe. A little info on the subscription. When you subscribe wherever you are and you select the download goes automatically to your phone. So that happens, and that counts, that registers kind of as a point for the podcast. And that's how these things are regulated for the most part. Streams don't count too much, but downloads do. So if you are trying to support the show and move us up the ranks, like I've been very transparent about, that I'm a competitive guy and I love trying to get into the top 20 here. If you could download the episodes, that would be amazing. That's helpful. Rating the program, sharing the program, reviewing the program. Those all help a ton, and we'll continue to keep this thing growing. And I'll continue to create some amazing guests for you, like Willie O'Ree. Like Willie O'Ree. How can you ever find somebody like Willie O'Ree? So I'll continue to find great guests and do my best to provide and share their story in a way that maybe you haven't heard it before. So without further ado, we'll bring you back to my interview with Hall of Famer Willie O'Ree. Thanks, Willie. Thanks for coming back again today and getting these last couple of questions in. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've got a plumbing problem, and I got a plumber coming over here in about 45 minutes.
Gotcha.
What can I help you with?
Well, I just wanted to wrap things up from our conversation yesterday. After we covered a lot of stuff, and I just wanted to, what you think that your greatest accomplishment has been since you've retired from the game and since you've been involved with the NHL and working with these kids all across North America.
Well, I'd have to say reaching out and touching thousands of kids regarding the game of hockey and being involved with these boys and girls in the hockey accelerator program.
Yeah, and is there any way that we can be of support, meaning just people who are playing the game right now and are involved in the game as coaches or as families involved in the sport?
Oh yeah, I think we're getting a lot of not only the players that have retired, but we're even getting some of the active players coming out and talking to the kids, and it means a tremendous amount to these boys and girls. Just to have these players come out just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and just talk to them, because it makes a big impact on them. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way the game is played now and the popularity of it, and and now Seattle's coming in, and it's the game is growing, but still we need these players to come out. They're the ones that can really make things happen.
Yeah, I agree, and it's great that there is more representation. I know we have to get farther with that, but as far as kids being able to see people from different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, different skin colors playing the game at a high level, then that allows them the opportunity to believe that they can be there too, and maybe want to put their skates on at a young age.
Exactly.
Is there one big challenge you can speak to that's still left to kind of fight to get more people involved in the game, and what would that be?
Oh gosh. Challenge.
Is it economics? I mean, it seems like it's an economic thing a lot of the time. Is that where it lies?
Yeah, you have to have the interest. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. If you're not interested, regardless of who talks to you or what you're trying to get across to them, if they don't have the interest, they're not going to take part. And I mean, I know a lot of these boys and girls that have parents that they come and watch the kids practice and watch the games, and that's good, because it's nice to see these kids look up in the stands and see their parents there. And I know a lot of a lot of kids, parents, they just send their kids to practice and then they leave. I mean, they're gone and they come back. It's like a babysitting thing. They come back and pick the boy or girl up after the practice is over. And I mean, I know that, probably a lot of the parents are busy, but then they could still take a few minutes out to come and watch their boy or girl, participate, because it means a lot to these boys and girls.
I agree. Willie, you've been an ambassador for the game. You've been an ambassador here, always representing first class act. And I failed to mention yesterday, but happy 85th birthday. And you've said you said previously that you still have goals and you still have dreams, and I think that is amazing. Is there anything you'd want to share with us as far as what those goals are? Maybe to sign off with at 85 years old, what it is you want to accomplish?
Well, no, so I haven't traveled since March, since this coronavirus thing started, and I was going around to schools and businesses, but I just want to do what I've been doing, going around and interacting with these boys and girls, and talking to some of them that I haven't had the opportunity to speak with, and let them know that hockey is a growing sport. It's a new sport to a lot of boys and girls. Get them interested and get them playing. It's important for these kids to interact with other boys and girls, in their practices and games. And I see it. I was seeing it in my travels, but I think we just have to, let these boys and girls know that they have to, stay in school and keep their grades up and set goals for themselves. Goal setting is very important. It really is. You're going to tell yourself that what you want to do when you grow up, and then work towards that. And don't let anybody tell you you can't attain your goal. If you feel strongly within your heart, within your mind, every boy or girl has a mind. There's choices, decisions, and consequences, and those are the three words that I use every day. When you make choices, when you have decisions, and then there's the consequences.
Yes, well, you've been impacting lives for your entire life, it seems like, and you've been a trailblazer with many aspects, and just a shining example of class and of what hockey's meant to be. So, Mr. O'Ree, it's been a pleasure to chat with you, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. I've been really blessed. Really, not only I think a lot of it is came about when I came aboard the NHL. Because when I retired, my goal was to get back into the NHL, and I knew that I was going to get back in. I just didn't know when. And doors would open, close, doors would open and close, and then when Brian McBride, called me and got me interested. That's the thing right there that started, and then from then on there were just so many things. I had a rink in my hometown. Named after me. I had got into the Hall of Fame in 2018, and I was contacted by Canada that I'm going to get into Canada Hall of Fame. I've had a coin from the Canadian Mint, the $20 pro silver coin, but there's just 4 or 5 other major things that have happened in my life, and as I just said, you set goals and you work towards your goals, and things happen. And things happen if you keep thinking along those lines and being very positive.
I appreciate that, Willie, and well deserved, every one of those accomplishments and accolades, for sure. And we're going to do our part here at Up My Hockey to get your story out even further and get some kids involved in researching your story.
I'd like to come and visit your program.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
If this virus thing, settles down, or we're unable to fly, I'd put you on top of the list to come out and talk to the kids.
Oh, that'd be super special.
We can
Super
make
special.
it. We can make it happen. Yeah, we can make it happen, and I'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, Willie, and all the best this year.
Yeah.
We hope this virus clears up so we can get you back on the road and making differences in these communities. Yep, perfect. Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Down the line. Yeah, you take care.
Okay, thanks, Willie.
Yeah, God. Yeah, be safe and keep well.
Will do. What a story, what a guy. Willie O'Ree, 85 years old, talking about goals and dreams, and that he's not done yet, and there's so many more things that he still has left to do. And you can tell how much energy that he has. He is a true role model for every single one of us out there. You spend any time at all reflecting on what his life must have been like. One of two black families in Fredericton growing up, the youngest of 13 kids, the first to walk into his local barbershop, the first to be a black hockey player on most of the teams he was on, the first to enter into the NHL, on a nightly basis having to deal with catcalls from the crowd and racial slurs and stick fights and all the rest of the stuff that came with being a hockey player for him, but his passion for the sport outweighed that. And the fact that we didn't even get into, and I didn't go there, but with the idea that the NHL didn't really recognize him until 1998 at 75 years old. He had done a ton of different jobs, a ton of different things in his life, but there was no resentment. He's not angry. He wasn't upset. He just did his job. And when the NHL called, he said yes. He jumped to it. And he's been fulfilling that position ever since. And it's just such a great story. He's such a humble man. He has so much humility. He's so grateful for everything that he's got. And he really is. He's an example for everybody. From a hockey player standpoint, if you've ever played hockey, if you're listening to this program and you're trying to play hockey right now or you've played it, try standing on the left wing and put an eye patch over your right eye. Please try and do that. See how much of the rink you can see and see how far you have to turn your head around to look back when the defenseman's coming around the net or to see your right winger on the far side. I could not imagine playing with one eye and essentially being blind to half the ice or putting yourself in a compromising situation half the time. He must have had hockey IQ through the roof to last as long as he did, to stay healthy as long as he did. I couldn't imagine what he would do with two eyes. And I love the fact that he ended up getting moved over to the right wing where he could see more action, and he ended up winning 2 goal-scoring titles over there. So, what a tribute, what a testament. He could obviously play the game. He obviously knows how to behave within the game, how to represent the game well, and how to introduce young athletes to this great sport. I know we have a lot to learn from him. I know I've learned a lot from him and his story. And those of every single person that plays this game that would represent as a minority, I give that a little bit of a special reflection because I know it must be different. And so now I take a little more time and now I make sure that the environment is healthy, that the environment is safe, and that we are all respectful and welcoming because as he stands for, the NHL's diversity ambassador, this game only gets better the more diverse it gets. So, thank you for listening, and as usual, play hard and keep your head up.